Hey everybody, it's Wednesday, January 20th, and so the last few days, I think yesterday we looked at what happens when you don't collide, and the fact that history really shows us, especially the last 50 years, that we haven't been doing a collision of church and family, the yellow and the red. Today what I want to do is as we go through this book, I don't know if I've mentioned the book to you. It's called Think Orange, and it's written by Reggie Joyner, and it's rocked my world over the last few years. Been able to go to some of his conferences, even seeing him when he was in town here last year. But what I want to share with you really today, or talk about some of the points that he brings across in his book, is to really focus in on the yellow aspect, and that's the church. That's the lampstand. That is Christ. That is the head of the Church of Christ. And I think really what it comes down to, and I think is we're seeing potentially, I've been in ministry for a long time and talking to a lot of other pastors and youth pastors. I said yesterday, I think that youth ministry is in a little bit of funk. And I think ultimately the church as a whole is really trying to figure out what we're to be about. There's a quote from his book that says this: perhaps the reason the church has an image problem is because the church has an identity problem. An image problem because of an identity problem. I think the church is really trying to figure out nowadays, in terms of the North American church anyway, who are we really supposed to be, and what are we trying to do? It's really easy, I think, for the church to often drift away from being the lampstand, and instead of focusing on Christ, who is the light, focusing on Christ and understanding and being obedient to where he's calling the church to be. Sometimes we get really caught up, and I know for myself personally, as a pastor, I can focus a lot more of my attention on doing the work of what I think the church is, rather than being the church. And I think to some degree, and I'm probably going to offend some people here, but oh well, this is just my opinion on this. I think sometimes we focus too much exactly on that, on how to make things so incredibly relevant, on how to provide these amazing programs for people to get them into our church facilities, rather than focusing on really what's key. So often what we do is we trade the lampstand for a program, or we change the focus on Christ to not focusing on Christ and focusing more on the needs of people, when I think sometimes we got to head back to really what is the key of what we're trying to do. There's another good quote here. Let me just find it here real quickly. Here's some of the arguments of people. The church is too institutional. It should be more organic. We hear that all the time. The church is too attractional. It should be more missional. The church is too traditional. It should be more relevant. The church is too inward. It should be more emergent. And, we all have those different opinions, and I think it's okay to have those things. But here's a really important piece of this, and it's a quote that he says. It's here. Our mission, and I truly believe this, and I think most people within the church, and I would hope that the body of Christ believes this, is that our mission is not to preserve the local church. But I think so often that's exactly what we try to do. But it's not to preserve the local church as it presently exists in the various forms or models, because sometimes we focus on those forms and models, and that becomes sort of our sacred cow, and that's the thing that we go after. But our mission is to be the church. So in context of even youth ministry and bringing the family into that, it's more about where is God at work in this world? And how can we as a church, and how can we as individuals and as small groups and as different ministries of the church, how can we be missional? How can we be the church rather than doing the church? I mean, consider the possibilities of that. He says here, your programs are not sacred. Your church is not sacred. But what is sacred is the mission of the church. What are we called to do? We are called to shine a light and demonstrate God's love and grace to those who need it. There you go. We are to shine a light. That's what the church is there for. We are to shine a light. We are to be a part of the redemptive story to the world. That's our ultimate calling. Anyway, something to think about today. Tomorrow we'll look at. So that was the lampstand. The whole church dynamic is trying to figure out who we really are. Because if we can't figure out who we are as a church, how are we even supposed to begin to know how we're supposed to be able to influence a family? It can't happen. So we collide, and it really is a major collision without any positive ramifications. Church has got to figure it out. Tomorrow we're going to look at the family, what the family's all about, and family figuring out, and then we can figure it all out and come together. It's a beautiful fit. Anyway, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Been ranting, talking a little bit too long. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on Thursday. Bye.